dedicated to each and every one of you who appreciate a great glass of wine. You know what I mean?
It's Monday. Let's raise a glass to the beginning of another week. It's time to unscrew, uncork, or savor a bottle. And let's begin exploring the wine glass. Today on the podcast, I enjoyed a riveting conversation with some of my wine friends. In 2023, there were a lot of winery buyouts. It seemed like another smaller brand was being gobbled up by the big players such as Gallo or Treasury every week. We questioned if this was a good thing or a bad thing. Plus, what would we do in that situation? Would we give up our brand? And if so, what would we do with all of that money? If you listen to the podcast, you notice that many ask for Patreon. We do not plan on doing this, but we do ask you to support the podcast by leaving a review. It takes only a few seconds of your time, but means so much to the show. The next best way to support Exploring the Wine Glass is to tell your friends. If you enjoy the podcast, your wine-loving friends will too. Finally, don't forget to head to the website exploringthewineglass.com to read the blog, sign up for the newsletter so you can keep up on all things happening. Lancha!
Never let you go.
Hey everybody, I'm Lori Budd, a UC Davis winemaking program, Spanish wine scholar, sommelier service, champagne and Côte d'Aron specialist, and a WSET Level 2 graduate. You can find Exploring the Wine Glass on all the socials, as well as your favorite podcast catchers. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to swipe, subscribe, rate, and review. Stay in the know about all things wine by visiting my website, exploringthewineglass.com. I promise I'll never tell you what to drink, but I'll always share what's in my glass.
Very special. You are so special. You even in the Bible. Water.
Hello. So in the news, we are constantly, it is almost a daily news brief of some small winery being acquired by the big guys. And I am kind of tired of seeing all this. And like the latest one, and so close to home, is the Dow acquisition for $1 billion.
I didn't hear about that one.
Wow. $1 billion. Yes. And so I can't even fathom that amount of money. But so I just wanted to. So it was Gallo, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Gallo. Well, it's going to be one of the three. Yes, it was Gallo. That's like the one I didn't put on my list, I think. No, I am sorry. It was Treasury Wine Estates.
Treasury.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Treasury Wine Estates purchased on October 31st. They announced it was official, or October 30th, it was official. Treasury Wine Estates acquires Dow for $1 billion. And it did take on, Dow had a lot of debt. So they're not physically getting $1 billion. That billion encompasses taking, covering that debt. But
And is that everything? Does that include the brand, the vineyard, everything? Okay.
yes, what I'm not 100% sure is, so Dow has, you could see the writing on the wall that this was going to happen because of how Dow started producing the wine and where you could start seeing it. So, Dow was always this luxury brand. And then all of a sudden, Dow was in Costco, and Dow was in Bevmo, and the brand kind of started diverging into these different, or morphing into these different things. I do not know, but I can't imagine that they or maybe they did sell the Patrimony, which was their high luxury, right? I think they were, so proud of. It was the first, I don't know, $300, $400 bottle of wine in Paso. And then they also have Soul of the Lion. And that one is dedicated to their father. So I don't know if that was included in the acquisition. What I found interesting was every other acquisition that you see the write-up about, the press release, it always says terms unknown or not disclosed. But this was bam, $1 billion sale. So I don't know. What do you guys, well, before we get into that, I should let you guys introduce yourselves. So Melanie, why don't you go first? Give the listeners a little bit of info about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Melanie Ofenloch, and I run Dallas Wine Chick, which has been around for about 13 years, and just love telling the story of wine.
I'm Debbie Gioquindo.
Because nobody knows you on my podcast.
I know. And I'm sure I forget something along the way. I'm known as the Hudson Valley Wine Goddess. I'm a certified specialist of wine, a wine location specialist in Port and Champaign, and a wine cherry specialist. Author of book Tapping the Hudson Valley, Day Trips and Weekend Itineraries, visiting the Hudson Valley wine region. I co-host Wine for Bet Street with Lori, and I'm chairwoman of the Hudson Valley Wine and Spirits competition and whatever. I'm partner in Trio North Wildwood restaurant in North Wildwood, New Jersey.
So we are covering 3 time zones here. So this is good. This is good. So now, what do you, when you read this, I'm guessing you read it somewhere that Dow was acquired. What went through your brain? What made you think of, wow, what's going on here?
Debbie, you want to go first?
You can go first, Melanie.
Well, having been there for the last WWET conference and having been hosted by Dow that last night, it definitely was a level of luxury. And I always question when the bigger companies, not everyone, but Gallo, Constellation, Victory, what are they going to do with all of those assets? What is it going to end up? Will the brand stay true, because I work in marketing as my day job? And will the Dow that I went to that last dinner at and the Dow that I may visit again, how different will they be?
Yeah, and that is a very true question. And one of the things I've noticed is some of the acquisitions specifically state somebody, in some way they're staying on. And I think,
you know what, for how long?
Right.
Because here's I look at this, 2 ways. One, they don't have a exit strategy, so they're, and this is just in general. So they're older and they don't have an exit strategy. So when a big conglomerate comes up, it's okay, they may or may not have family members that are interested in the business.
right.
So this might be their way out. And then the other part of me looks at it is that it's losing its identity. Because eventually, it's the winery, regardless of what winery it is. It could be Dow, it could be Frank Family, it could be Rombauer. Now they're owned by big conglomerates. Mm-hmm. So it maybe it's good for the staff because it opens the staff up to maybe possibly more benefits for them. But does it lose the identity of who and what the winery was and that personal touch that the winery had with its clientele?
And that's an interesting concept, Deb, because I didn't even think about that. People who work in tasting rooms typically are not really making a lot of money, right? They're relying mostly on tips and selling club memberships to get a bonus with each club membership that they sign up and things like that. And when a conglomerate comes in and purchases it, I have no idea. Are they, now that I'm an employee, am I no longer an employee of Dow? Am I employee of Treasury?
I would think Treasury estates, but that goes beyond the tasting room. It goes to the vineyard workers.
Yep.
It goes to the winemaking. So, are they, is it better for them where they're able to get more benefits? Are they getting a 401k? Are they getting health benefits that they may or may not have been getting before? A lot of times tasting room staff, is retirees. Yeah, they down here and in the Hudson Valley, a lot of times they are.
What?
But yeah,
That just said, really?
yeah, seriously. Yeah. In a lot of the tasting rooms, they're retirees that have retired and this is their second job. Not all the time, but
Okay, well,
in
there's quite a
other
few of that here.
places they're not. They're people that want to get into the wine industry and this is where they're starting. So it opens them up to, do they get benefits? Do they get, 401k and all that stuff? Because a smaller winery, boutique winery like yourself, Laura, you wouldn't be able to give somebody health benefits and a 401k.
I can't even afford to have somebody.
Yeah.
Never mind, give them benefits and all of that stuff, right? I mean,
So
that's why I live in my tasting room, yeah.
But I think it's interesting because you can look at someone like a Jackson family, and they actually keep the culture of the wineries, maintain their own people, their own identity. And there's just the thing that I think they're bringing to them is more money, more benefits, the ability to, really go out and make a lot of the budget, things that they've wanted to do. And I see that being a good opportunity, obviously, versus when someone comes in and, rips and replaces, a great tasting room with a prisoner tasting room. And you're just like, what happened? How do you justify that?
Right. So you're talking about like the Jackson who does keep it versus
Yes.
per se the wonderful company who, I remember here in Paso, Justin, we, Mike and I loved Justin Wines. We loved going there. The ambiance was a rustic tasting room. We loved being in there. And then we actually had no idea that it was purchased by the wonderful company. And then we went to go visit one time and it was all metal and bright and shiny and the prices went through the roof, and it was a completely different dynamic being in there like that.
So do you think that they were going after different market share? Different demographics?
Absolutely. They went to go become a luxury brand is what they did. So I understand that concept of are they going to keep the people on? But so being, negative Nelly here or whatever, if do you have or maintain that passion for your business if it's no longer your business, right? So right. So, and I'm not saying Frank family doesn't, right? But I'm just, like they were a smaller winery, they're purchased, they did stay on, I believe, right?
They did.
So, but now I've got paid all of this money. Do I still have that same passion? And like, I can walk away whenever I want because it's no longer mine. And
yeah, but usually there's a contract that usually it's a certain amount of years that the key people have to stay on. So you have some of that, but you see how quickly people often leave wineries and especially winemakers, and then all of a sudden they have their own brand. Right. So I think there's a little more of that I've seen lately going on, and I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see they're still following their passion and
right.
So and I want to also look at the quality.
Right.
was, and I'm going to give this example, and I don't want to really put names into it, but there was a winery in Sonoma that I really loved their Sauvignon Blanc. And what they did was they added a little Viognier to it, and it really
Ooh, that's a
really shined. And they were purchased by Vintage Estates, and I recently got their Sauvignon Blanc, and it's now, I know, vintage variation and stuff like that, but it just wasn't the same. Like, huge discrepancy. So, how do you maintain the quality of what that small boutique winery was when you get, bought out?
Yeah.
right. And that's what, when these big companies come in, and then they don't necessarily in their business plan want it to stay, small. Right. So they're going to want to expand. And when you expand certain things,
So, because I know I was just really disappointed in,
So will you try the next vintage, or are you done because of that? Like,
I'm
it
done with
could
that
be, so what
Sauvignon
vintage,
Blanc vintage. I wouldn't order the Sauvignon Blanc again.
so was that a 2022?
I can't remember. This was last year.
Oh, last year. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so it might have been a 2021.
2021, right?
It was
So
21.
are you done with that wine completely, or when they release a new vintage, would you try it again?
I'm not sure. To be honest with you, I'm not sure.
That's a big leap.
Because
Yeah.
I have been drinking that for decades. So yeah,
And
for a
so-
very long time.
so
And it
for
changed
those-
drastically.
Okay. So for decades, it kind of was a consistent.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was consistent, swayed a little depending on, the weather and all the other
Right,
issues
right.
that go into harvest. But this was a huge
Oh, wow.
discrepancy.
And was it this, do you know if it was still that splash of Viognier in there?
I do
Like,
not know.
Okay, so
I do
they
not
might
know.
have
Right.
changed the whole
They-
profile,
But they changed something
something.
that was just like, I always went after that wine, and
Right.
I got, half a case, and I'm like,
Oh.
right. Yeah. Something's not
Christmas
right.
present. Holiday gifts.
Yeah.
Yes. Put it on the Thanksgiving Day
but
table.
you know what? So does, that happens. People, they might have gotten a new winemaker, and the new winemaker wanted to put his twist
on
on
it.
something.
Right.
His twist was not,
To your palate.
exactly.
Right.
Sure.
So I found that in the first half of 2023, there were 11 notable acquisitions,
Wow.
as opposed to 8 in 2022. So you have 8 in 2022, and now you have 11 in just the first half of 2023. So it seems that this is the trend. This is the direction that it's going in, is that these little boutique wineries or small production wineries are being consumed. So we just had Rombauer that was purchased by Gallo.
Real quick, Lori, would you say that is a small boutique winery? I mean,
Nick!
they were massive. They were everywhere.
That is true. That is true. Why can't I see you, Nick?
That's because I got in from a really rough day at work and I'm in my jammies.
Oh, okay.
Just got home.
Okay. All right.
And Nick, you come in on my screen as Melanie.
Melanie,
Yeah.
that's
It's
my
very
fault.
odd. So let me see if I can
No.
change that.
No. I know
right.
why that happened, because when I sent the email that said we're ready to chat, I just pulled up Melanie's invite.
I'll just change to Nick so
There
that
you go.
Well, it doesn't
Perfect.
matter
if I start
see
matching
you.
people in the industry, nobody knows my last name.
Okay. Yeah. but we can't see Nick or anything. So I just was confused. I didn't even know you were sitting there. I admitted Melanie again. I didn't. So it was like the voice from beyond.
Well, and I'm sorry that I missed the first part because I have some fairly strong opinions, probably to your chagrin, Lori, because I find some of these acquisitions to be just really smart. Even the Frank family, they were widely distributed to begin with. I mean, they were small, but they were widely distributed anyway. So, no one was going to be able to afford to take these over when they decided to retire.
So that actually Debbie had like talked about that, about no exit strategy. And so the acquisition being a benefit because of there's no exit strategy. But so Nick, just give a little quick brief bio of who you are, because you actually come at this conversation from a different angle, from a different perspective.
I do. So my name is Nick. I'm the marketing director for a medium-sized wine company based here in the Napa Valley. I've been in the industry for now over a decade. And so, I mean, I've worked for very small production wineries and I've worked for large international wineries. So I see things slightly differently.
And so let's go back to that Frank family. If they weren't acquired, they would have just rode off into the sunset and Frank family would no longer be on the shelves. Is that what you're saying?
That could very well be the case because, again, if you don't have that exit strategy, if you don't have somebody like a multi-generational family that's willing to take it on, what else are you going to do? You're going to sell, but you're going to sell at a value that people are or another company is going to purchase you for. So a Frank family that had wide distribution, or at least here in California has a great amount of distribution, they weren't going to sell to mom and pop investors that were just maybe coming out of Silicon Valley that might have quite a bit of money, but they went for the highest price. And I mean, who wouldn't?
Right.
I think it's like Eberle Winery, for example. They have a succession plan that includes their employees because they don't have kids. And I always thought when Gary was telling us about that was such an interesting and innovative way to, reward the people that have been there for you and clearly kind of creating that Eberle family legacy as well.
I love that.
I like that idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know several Eberle employees, like including the winemaker, who I think is I absolutely adore him. And his last name is Eberle and they're not even related. So I think that's hysterical.
That's funny.
But that I didn't know that. I'm going to have to ask Chris about that. That's an interesting thing. Gary is people have opinion, everybody has their own opinion. I absolutely adore the man. I think too. He is his heart is one of the biggest out there, and he's just a jolly guy that really has Paso in his heart, and that right there just elaborates on that's what type of person he is. That's interesting. I had no idea he did that. So.
It was a cool story. And it's not one that he obviously broadcasts as well, right? Because he just happened to be happened to be in the office when he was telling us the story.
No. Yeah. No, I don't think I've never heard that. So it's not a typical conversation, I guess, or something he advertises. Yeah.
And Debbie, to your point, the company that you mentioned that acquired that winery in Sonoma, I won't repeat their name, they ruin everything they touch, so it's fine. It just
I didn't name their name.
No, but the company that bought them, the bigger company.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Everything.
Which is just so sad. You read the headline and your heart just skips a beat and you're like, well, there goes that winery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then grocery store shelves are lined forever.
Yeah.
Right. So without re-mentioning their name, why do you, so are people just selling just to get the money then? If they know that they've got the Grinch touch, I mean, is it just to get, I can sell it and like, not that I ever expect, to get my $1 billion for Gersina wines. But I wouldn't want to sell it to, if I was selling it to somebody, I'd want it to continue at least with the passion or at least the story of it to continue on. So if they ruin everything they touch, I don't think I'd want to sell to them, but I guess sometimes money talks, right?
That's hard because there's probably so many different drivers from health to finance to succession. So I think it's a hard one to answer.
Yeah, and once you sell, you have no say. So if you see your former baby going in a direction that you don't agree with,
Right.
you don't have a say.
Yeah.
Right. I
You
mean,
know?
I just think about our house in New Jersey. That backyard was filled with briars, and Mike and I, well, Mike, Mike ripped out all of those briars, but I designed the backyard. It was our blood, sweat, tears that, planted each of the new trees and designed the waterfall and built the gazebo and created this haven for us to be in. And we sold it. And the people who purchased that house ripped everything down, killed there was this beautiful oak tree in the center of the property that I designed the entire yard around, and they cut it down. They took out the waterfall, they took out the gazebo, they put up and I'm an athlete and a softball player. They put up a batting cage where and it kills me. Like, I can't go back because it hurts so much to see what they did with this yard. I can't imagine Gersina wine, I can't imagine.
Well, it's the same feeling.
Yeah.
In the Hudson Valley, there's a woman who sold her winery to another winery, and they came in and they tore up a bunch of the vines. She's still living on the property, and because that was in her agreement.
Right.
And, she's upset by stuff. And I tell her, you can't be upset. It's not yours anymore.
Yeah.
You have to step away. You might live on the property, but you have to step away.
Now, I'm curious, though, as to how many of these actually did they stay on? So, Constellation has purchased Domain in June. They purchased Domain Curry in Napa. Nick, I don't know if I've never heard of them, but they're supposed to be a super luxury brand in Napa.
I've actually never heard of them. I'll have to look them up. Surprising.
They were purchased, and then Prisoner, this is old news now, but it was such big news. Booker Winery, right, was purchased by Constellation, but Eric has maintained a portion of it, so he's kind of like diversified or divided what he's got, and they didn't purchase everything, and he's still there on for a set amount of years with that, which
I think in these contracts, when they purchase them, they stay on for a certain amount of time.
I think in some situations, but I don't think that's true in every situation.
So
I think it depends what they're buying. Are they buying the brand or they buying
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to Rombauer, it was a very smart move for Gallo, which is largely a Cabernet house, even at their size, to diversify and bring in Chardonnay, because that is what it is known for, Chardonnay and Zinfandel. Given the following that Rombauer has, they're not going to change a thing. I mean, that would be just terrible marketing.
Right.
And so it goes same for Dow, same for, many of these larger companies that have a very strong in-market following, they stay the same.
Yeah, you're true. Like, could you imagine if Gallo came in and changed Ron Bauer to a stainless steel shard?
No.
Oh,
So here's a flip question. What do you think the Constellation, the Treasury, the Gallows, I mean, are they after world dominance?
Yes.
Oh,
They're after shelf, real estate, and land.
Okay.
totally agree.
And now I am not 100% sure about the other wineries, but Gallo is not only acquiring wineries, they are acquiring actual vineyards, right? So it was Gallo who purchased Stagecoach, right? Stagecoach Vineyard, who, famous vineyard. So I don't know if other I'm looking at my little notes here. Are they the only ones who, like, what's that concept for purchasing Stagecoach? Are those grapes going to be going into the wineries they've purchased, or is that to continue?
A lot of people purchase Stagecoach. It's a very well-known name, and so it's a great buy for them to use in their own products, but also people are sourcing fruit at high amounts. The one thing I'll say about Gallo is they have really great viticulturalists. They really do care about their vineyards, just knowing people who work for them, both on the winemaking and the vineyard side. And so whenever they do take over land, I mean, just know that it is getting taken care of, like, real deeply, like, with love.
Oh, no, I know that, but I also know people who had contracts, some of the smaller boutique people who had contracts with, I'm getting a ton of Stagecoach so that I can make a Stagecoach wine, and they lost their contracts. So there it is. They're pushing out the little guy of the people who've had contracts.
I haven't heard that, but I mean, that very well could be the case. I mean, prices for fruit in Napa just keep going up every year.
Right.
So, I mean, regardless of who's buying the
but
fruit or who owns the vineyard. And so if somebody can't afford the fruit anymore, I mean, unfortunately, that's just a fact of making wine.
So maybe it wasn't they lost their contract. Maybe it was they couldn't afford. And now a word from our sponsor. Dracaena Wines loves to give back. There are so many fur babies that deserve to find their forever home. We would love to be able to help as many as possible. If you are part of a nonprofit organization or know of a nonprofit organization that would like to hold a fundraiser, please contact us at contact@dracaenawines.com or visit our website, dracaenawines.com, to fill out the form. How does the fundraiser work? It is super simple and costs your group absolutely nothing. Together, we will choose a month that your group will be sponsored. During the month, you promote the fundraiser just like any other event you'd hold. At the end of the month, we will donate 20% of the sales to your organization. The donations will be made in the name of each individual who purchased the wine so that you know exactly who helped the animals. Our goal is to raise as much funds as we possibly can and to help as many animals as possible. So please help us help as many fur babies as we possibly can.
And I know I sound really cold and negative, like I'm for the big man, but I mean, again, I've worked for very small producers, and so I do love the wine industry, and I do support the small family wineries.
I know you do. But so I don't know. I mean, does that, so Melanie, Deb, like, would you not purchase wine anymore? Just knowing that it was purchased by a larger company?
I don't think I'd make a blanket decision, but I probably would go back and taste if I happen to have bottles kind of before and after. I'd be very curious to see what was going on, but I probably would not renew a wine club if everything had changed.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I didn't even see, this is why I love this conversation. I didn't even like think about something like that. The wine clubs, like, I mean, do the people who belong to, Booker or like Jackson, and this is one in British Columbia, Blue Grouse. I never heard of them, but like they're relatively small. It looked like when I was looking them up. If you're a member, do you now get a different sense of what your membership is like?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I'll give you, I belong to a wine club in Napa, a winery, small producer for years. I mean, we're going back to like 1996, and I was up there and I liked their label, joined their wine club, got to be very friendly with two of the owners, husband and wife. And then there was the winemaker, and it was actually his vineyard and stuff. You know, it was his family vineyard, whatever. But they ended up selling. And I'm not going to say who they sold to because that'll give away the winery.
But sold it to one of these big guys, or
they sold it to somebody that was in the beer industry. Okay. And it didn't have the same value to me
mhm.
as it did when it was owned by the other three. So I dropped from their wine club.
see, but I do think that brings up a whole other topic, I think, of, a lot of wine purchase is by experience, not
Yes.
necessarily the palate.
But
Right.
when you have a small boutique winery or, a mid-sized winery that you go to, that you like, that you become members of the wine club, there is some type of connection somewhere.
There should be.
Special feeling.
It's about the culture, right?
Yeah.
And
And whether you're present in that town or when you come to visit, what you get. And if it is not maintained by who they get purchased by, and it's a big conglomerate, and that feeling is gone, and that person's like missing the connection,
Yeah.
I mean, you have to maintain that connection. So how would the winery that just got bought out maintain that connection?
And I think we saw with the pandemic, how the smaller wineries struggled because I wouldn't say a lot of them are the most tech literate, and they had to figure out how to really, bring people together and build that culture.
Yeah.
That also goes back to, Debbie, what you were saying before is if this large company comes in, are the people who are in the tasting room still the same people? Then wouldn't you still have the same dynamic in that
Do they still have the
dynamic?
same attitude? Because that can change as well.
Yeah,
All
but
of a
that can
sudden-
change even if they're not
yeah,
even if they're not.
yeah. But I don't know.
I mean, I think too, Mike and I years and years ago went to a wine region. I won't say which. Went to a wine region, and we came back with several cases of wine because we had a great time.
Mhm.
The people in the tasting rooms, the views, all of that stuff, we had a great time. And this was years ago, so very young in our wine, journey. And we came back with a couple of cases. And then when we started drinking the wine in the house, we didn't like the wine. It was like, it just wasn't good wine, and we ended up gifting them away, giving them.
It's funny, I touched on that yesterday in my seminar, but yeah, it's about the experience.
Yeah, it is about the experience. And I think, like Nick saying, they're not going to touch Rombauer. Rombauer is going to still remain Rombauer. So whatever whatever the experience is that Rombauer gives is probably going to stay the same.
Well, that's in the bottle, but is it the same in the tasting room?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's certain companies that probably value the previous culture more than others. And I've seen companies get acquired where I've done the same. I've dropped the club because I didn't like the corporate feel of how, excuse me, of how it became. But again, sometimes that acquisition can offer more benefits to its members. It adds human resources and financial resources that maybe the mom and pop couldn't do, and so it's a benefit for the consumer. It can go either way, just depending on the larger company that purchases it.
Have you ever worked for a winery that got acquired?
Yes, and I left and I moved to Napa. So the family that I worked for in Oregon and Washington, they sold to a company that I did not agree with their values, how they ran their company, etc. And so I moved. I've always worked for privately owned or family owned companies, whether they're mid-size or small. And that's something that I value. And if I was being acquired by, say, a Gallo or a Treasury, I mean, it is looking at, their internal company culture, what they can bring to the table as to whether I would stay or not.
And when that company got acquired, did you have a sit down? Okay, we're being acquired by XYZ starting tomorrow.
Yeah, so funny story was we all knew that they were being acquired because the family wasn't smart enough to print all their contracts privately. And so they were all coming out on our own company Xerox machine. And they were touring people around. So before it ever happened, we all knew. Yeah, it was pretty funny. So we forced the 25th anniversary party. We forced the family to have it. Knowing that they were selling. It was kind of bad to say, but and when I had already knowing that they were selling, I had applied, already got my job in Napa. When they came on, they called everybody to the conference room, announced that they were selling. None of us act surprised. And basically everybody had to fill out new work applications and so forth. It was almost like you were fired from the old company and being rehired into the new one.
Wow.
Yeah, they were awful people, in my opinion. They still own they still own the winery up there, and they try to change things. And we had a very strong wine club following and people who knew the brand. And so they went from when they changed the name, they changed it back to the winery name because people stopped going.
Oh, okay. So there's the loyalty to the brand.
Exactly. And when a company acquires a smaller winery or a mid-sized winery, they need to be aware of that because, to just up and change the name or the overall feel, it's not a good move.
Yeah. Well, what would be the reasoning of changing the name? If I'm purchasing Stagecoach, let's just go with Stagecoach, right? Or Dow or Booker or, whatever, Han or whatever. I'm purchasing them because they've done something that has made the public aware of them. Otherwise, there's no value of me purchasing them. So what's the logic of changing the name?
I don't know, but there was a winery in the Hudson Valley. They sold, and the people came in and they bought the name, and they came in, and you know who I'm talking about. And shortly after, I interviewed them, and then they had told me that they're going to keep the legacy brand of the wine, but they were changing the name of everything, and they did. Do I know how it's going now? No, I don't. You know, because I haven't been back to interview them because there were some other issues. Not going to go into it.
Like, I just don't know. I mean,
but-
you would never, I would never think to change Stagecoach Vineyard. It's got this, you know,
Equity,
bow
brand
down,
equity,
we're not
yeah.
worthy, right?
Yeah.
There's someone who spent a lot of hours, a team that spent a lot of time making that what it is today. And as a marketer, I just think how expensive it is to change every single thing with the new name.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you.
But not only that, it's creating that whole new following. I mean, you might as well just start. You're starting from scratch again.
Yeah.
There is a certain part of people you're going to retain, but I would think there'd be a good drop off. You know, just because people like familiar things, and now all of a sudden it's not familiar anymore. And what are they doing? And what are they doing in terms of not just their wine club, but their winemaking and their whole overall appearance?
I don't know. I'm thinking, first of all, I can't even imagine, you know, when Deb was talking about, are they trying to create this dynasty, the, you know, a Gallo dynasty or a Treasury dynasty or whatever. Where are they thinking there? Like, Nick, what is their concept of when is there enough is enough? Is there, I'm just going to keep Pac-Man in the pellets? What?
Probably depends if they're public or private and what they promise their shareholders.
Now, that's a good point, Melanie.
See, now I don't
Gallo
do anything
public
like
or private?
that. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna
Gallo
say. Are
is
these guys?
private.
Yeah.
Gallo is private.
I think Constellation is public, but let
I
me.
think that
Constellation is public, yes, and Gallo, I believe, is private.
and Gallo, like the whole family. I mean, they all have different parts that they're all in different, you know.
Which again is kind of a testament, even though it's a behemoth, it's the largest in the world, it's still a family-owned, family-run company. They're all very much engaged on a daily basis.
Yes.
And Jackson family is actually still just family.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they, you know, every winemaker that has been acquired by them has always told me that they keep the culture, they just pour in resources.
I've heard that too with Jackson family. So is Jackson family just trying to help the wine? I mean, obviously it's to make more money, but why is that a different philosophy? You know, what's their end game versus a Treasury or a Constellation end game?
I can probably answer the Jackson side, just having met several of them and seeing how involved they are in the community and to making the world a better place. I know it sounds marketing like, but they really do seem to want to do good for the world. Of course, they're trying to make a profit, but they're looking at areas and wineries that share some common philosophies, and that's what I've seen in my experience.
So they're purchasing. You think they're I don't want to say more conscientious, but conscientious about which ones they're acquiring, where some of the other ones are just like, oh, this is
prime real estate.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen.
I mean, I've seen from Gallo. I know someone who's worked at Gallo. I've known him for a very, very long time. And when I first met him, I mean, we were in a restaurant and he was showing me the soil that McMurray Vineyards, you know, the grapes were grown, you know, the vines were planted in. So they do keep everything separate and, you know, market it, each individual as, you know, its own. So, you know, I can't, you know, but it's such a huge company, you know, and going back to, you know, Roundbauer, they're keeping Roundbauer as Roundbauer. They just made the investment. So I think that's what they do is invest and also import as well from entities that are overseas, from what I've seen that I've been privy to.
So Jackson Family Wines is 40 brands, or that's what I read.
Yeah.
Is it about 40 brands? Are they a small guy in this big pond of acquisition companies?
What do you think, Nick?
No. They're within the probably the top 5 largest wine companies in the world, or at least in the US. So yeah, I wouldn't call them small. But
No, I
again,
meant in compared to, like, how many on average do you think Gallo has or Treasury has, or
oh well,
Constellation?
Gallo has hundreds of brands.
Okay,
versus-
that's what I thought.
yeah,
Okay.
so slightly different.
Right. Just big for the United States, but
And it's funny, like I can go into a liquor store, I can be with someone and I can say, oh, that's a Gallo brand. You know,
Oh, yeah.
they'll say, oh, look at this wine is great. I'm like, that's a Gallo brand. Gallo, really?
I can't do that. I don't pay attention enough, I guess.
Well, I've had a good Gallo educator.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I just kind of thought that this was an interesting. The other thing I thought was interesting is that every other one, which I think I said earlier, every other one was undisclosed for the amount,
Mhm.
and
$1
the
billion,
Dow.
that's a lot of money.
Yeah. So, but I have no idea what the other ones are, you know, to compare it to. I know Eric Booker, he is hysterical with the fact that he will never state what he got when he was acquired. And people have tried over and over and over again to get him to say how much he got. And that, you know, like, well, is it 5 zeros? Is it 6 zeros? Is it 7 zeros? Is it 8 zero? You know, like doing things like that. And he he refuses to acknowledge what it is. And I say kudos to him because it's his bank. Why is it known? But I'm curious as to why this one was so out there of how much it is. Is it because it's, are these other acquisitions, like, I'm whipping out a number. Are these other acquisitions like 400 million? And now we're talking $1 billion. So that's such a big difference. Why is this one acknowledged how much it is?
Maybe it was printed on the Xerox machine that everyone can see.
Right, exactly. Well, again, I think, obviously publicly traded company, they disclose it, but, Dow, because going out in the market, doing market research, surveys, working with distributors, Dow's everywhere. Dow is everywhere. It is worth $1 billion. I mean, what they will do to the brand and the amount of real estate that they will get for it, it's worth it. That's why it's so, but some of these privately owned companies like the Gallos of the world, they don't have to disclose. So that's why, I mean, it could be bigger than that with some of the acquisitions they've made.
Oh, okay. But there's other ones that have been, Treasury has purchased other ones and we don't know what it was cost. Treasury owns Frank Family. Treasury owns BV, Sterling, Behringer, Stag's Leap. And those, I couldn't find what those sold for.
That could be a family decision too, whoever owns it.
Right.
And guys, I'm so sorry I have to hop, but
Yes, well, I was
It's
going to
great
wrap it
seeing
up.
you.
We always try to keep it to just about an hour. But thank you, Melanie, for
Oh,
coming on.
Thank
And
you.
it was
absolutely.
so good to see
Great to
you.
see you guys.
Great to see you too.
All right. And Nick, I hope your day gets better.
Thanks, Melanie. Have a great night.
Take care.
Great.
So I'm curious where the next big region is that's going to get acquired. Is it Paso? Is it Washington? Is it Oregon? Oregon, when I was up there, started getting acquired. So where's the real estate at that these big companies want?
I don't know. I was kind of fell into a tasting at a winery in the Hudson Valley that I followed somebody from Gallo. Like when I walked in, I missed him by like
No.
15 minutes. And I happened to know him. And, you know, I was just like, huh, that's kind of weird.
That he's there. Yeah.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in terms of Paso, you know, we've had in 2 years, we've had 3 acquisitions, right? We've had Booker, Denner, and Dow. So, I mean, that's in 2 years, that's quite a bit of
So let me ask you
acquisitions.
this. What happens in the future? Say 10 years from now, you're going to have 4 or 5 wine companies that own the majority of wines. What's that climate going to look like?
Right. I mean, it's becomes a monopoly.
Yeah.
You know, it's like airlines, right? You've got United
Yeah.
American, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, what does the climate look like? And the pricing and the winemaking and the quality.
Right. You have all of there's so many wine regulations already out there. So I am not by far saying we need more regulation, but like there's regulations in other industries, you know, like hospitals. Hospitals can't just keep consuming other hospitals. There's a monopoly clause, like hospitals can't get too big. There needs to be other ones, you know, so is that something that needs to be regulated?
I don't know. But what are you regulating?
Right. I mean,
You know, you can't regulate really the winemaking because then everyone's going to be making the same wine.
right.
You know, I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what the answer is.
But so in 2021, there were 11,000 wineries in the US.
Okay.
So that's a lot to gobble up. I mean, that's a lot of small family-owned wineries. Now, granted, if you look at the top 10 by volume, obviously it was Gallo. We haven't even talked about the wine group. They're
Oh,
number
sure.
2. Constellation, Trinchero, Delicato, Treasury, Bronco, St. Michel, Jackson Family
Bronco.
Wines, and Deutsch
Oh.
round out the top 10.
St.
You know,
Michel,
they
that's a
range
whole other
from,
thing, huh?
let's see, 4.3 million cases for Deutsch, all the way up to 88 million for Gallo.
Wow.
It's a lot of wine.
That's a lot of wine. So, I mean, but with 11,000 wineries, you know, I don't think we're
At a
necessarily
monopoly state,
needing to worry yet.
But just, you know, interesting because, you know, back in the day, you know, you kind of like get to know a winery, you get to know the people, the owners. It's a good, warm, fuzzy feeling. And, you know, when it gets consumed by a larger entity, that sweet, warm, fuzzy kind of goes off a little bit.
It goes away.
Yeah.
Now, I think I know the winery you're talking about if it's about half a mile from Yountville Cross Road that you belong to.
Yeah.
I still get warm fuzzies when I go there, but I can understand why you would want to drop them.
Yeah. It just
But
wasn't the same for me.
It wasn't the warm fuzzy. It was the wine itself had changed so much.
Well, no, it was both. No,
Oh,
it was the warm
Oh,
fuzzy.
okay.
It was
Oh.
it was the whole package. It was the whole package.
And then the other thing is, I mean, not to say no, but you could have just had a bad service person.
Yeah, no, it was the whole.
Oh,
It was the whole
whole
package.
package. I don't know if I mean, I don't think I felt that we were going to solve the world's problems of large wine companies tonight. I just thought it was an interesting concept because, like I said, there were 8 acquisitions in last year and 11 in the first half of this year. So it seems to be happening at a much faster pace. And I just thought it was an interesting conversation.
No, it is very interesting. And I think, you know, Joe Public, when they reach for that bottle of wine, they don't know it's a Gallo brand.
No.
They don't know it's a Treasury Estate brand. They just know it's McMurray Vineyards and they like this wine.
And I think that's the difference between DTC and wholesale. You know, we get the warm fuzzies because we love going to the wineries. We love the story. We're not necessarily the go to the grocery store and pick that bottle off the shelf. And so you're right, the general consumer who doesn't come to wine country might not even notice or care about the change like we do. I care about it when a smaller company or a company like even Rombauer gets picked up by Gallo, because again, the financial resources that go along with that make my job even harder as a marketer, because what they're able to do is 100 times more than what I'm able to do. And so I mean, I'm not worried about it as a consumer necessarily. None of my favorite wineries are getting eaten up, but from the marketing perspective, I mean, it kind of sucks when Dow gets Treasury money and is going to blow up tenfold
More
of
than
what
they are
already
before.
is.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. That is true. A marketing budget, I mean, my marketing budget is what I can do on Instagram and, whatever,
Yeah, I got the same
versus,
marketing budget.
and you're right, Nick, that's absolutely true. They're already, some of these wineries are already blowing up the marketplace and marketing aspect, and now they're just getting more money to be able to do it more. You're gonna open every magazine and there's going to be an advertisement for this winery because the marketing money is there.
Oh, that goes to another point. Who reads magazines anymore?
True.
I mean,
True.
just think about it, I mean, I get Wine Spectator and stuff, but I don't get any other joyful magazine that I'm flipping through.
Right. Well, I mean, can you actually watch TV? And I'm not putting them down at all, but can you ever watch TV and not have a Kim Crawford commercial come on? No, not
Exactly.
Kim Crawford. Yeah.
Yeah, Kim Crawford.
Yeah. I'm like, no, yeah.
Even Apothic has a lot of commercials, at
I
least on like
understand,
Hulu.
but I don't watch that much TV.
But America does. America does.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
see the same commercials,
Yeah,
or the same brands over and over and over
Right.
again. I mean, it is what it is, I guess. But
yeah. I don't see
So-
much Kim Crawford in the restaurant, so it must not be on this side of the country. Seriously.
I don't know. The commercials are everywhere, and it's definitely targeting a very specific,
Mhm.
group.
Demographic, yes.
Yes, demographic. Thank you, Nick. I was like, I'll just say group. Yes. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for coming on.
Oh,
If
great
you
conversation.
have any last topic that I know Deb's got Buffalo on. I
okay.
hate to tell you, you're losing.
I know I'm losing. I know I'm losing.
But do you have any last comments that you would like to share, either about, this concept or, let people know where they can find you?
Sure, I'm the Hudson Valley Wine Goddess. You can find me at hudsonvalleywinegoddess.com. That's really the best place to find me. And I think, if a winery gets absorbed by a larger entity, I think you got to also give it a chance. In all fairness, in fairness to the old owners and what drew you to that brand, and to see if the larger entity is going to still maintain that and have that same feeling before you make any decisions to drop a wine club or not pick up a bottle of wine, because based on quality, if the quality of the wine changes or whatever.
Nick?
Sure. So people can find me at WineComGuy on Instagram. That's probably the best place to find me, sometimes on Twitter. And I would just echo what Debbie said. I think that was a really strong point, is if you do have a favorite wine company or a favorite winery that you've been going to, that you're a member of, don't just assume that when a big company purchases it, that it's going to go downhill, because some of the time they do buy it for that brand equity. and they want to keep that culture. So give it a try. If it doesn't work out, there's always many more family-owned wineries like Dristina that you become a member of.
Nick, oh, I love Nick. He always plugs me.
I'm waiting to be part of your succession plan. That's why.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll talk to Gary Everly and see how he's doing that, and I'll set that up for you. Okay.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
I want to thank you guys for coming on and spending your evening with me, sharing the information. As for me, if you're watching this, then you already know how to find me. So there's no need to go over that. So anyway, thank you guys. Have a great night. I appreciate your conversation and great seeing you or hearing you, Nick.
Good seeing you guys.
Thanks, Lori.
Bye.
Bye.
See you, Debbie. Good seeing you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Turn right into wine, so you and I can feel.
This has been another episode of Exploring the Wine Glass. Thanks for listening. If you have suggestions on what topics you would like me to discuss, please reach out on social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Exploring the Wine Glass. I am also on LinkedIn as Lori Hoyt Budd. Of course, you can always email me at exploringthewineglass@gmail.com and sign up for my newsletter at exploringthewineglass.com. If you enjoyed what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find me more easily. And most importantly, tell your wine-loving friends, because if you like the podcast, they will too. Podcast music is Wine by Key Vince. Until next week, slancha.
I'm on keeping for my 10,000 tell you. There is always time for a good glass of wine. Never let you go. No, never let you go. I want a nice glass right now.